This video is going to review two different strategies for systems of equations multiple choice questions using the calculator. So option one is to put both equations into y equals and look for the matching y values in the table, or to look for the point of intersection on the graph. So we're going to focus right now on option one. So the graphs of the equations y equals x squared plus 4x minus 1 and y plus 3 equals x are drawn on the same set of axes. One solution of this system is, so this part right here is going to go into y1. This over here I want to put in y2, but it has to be in y equals form first. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3 on both sides. I have y equals x minus 3, and then this is going to go into y2. So taking out my calculator, y equals, I'm going to clear out what I have in here. My first is x squared plus 4x minus 1. And then my second is x minus 3. So those are your two y equals. I can go to the graph. Remember, if you ever see a random graph that you're not used to, you can hit zoom 6 and that will bring you back to this main window here. So if I wanted to, I could do second trace 5 and I could scroll over using my left or right arrow to a point of intersection and hit enter 3 times. But I want to take a look at the table. So I'm going to hit second graph and I'm going to look at my table for the matching y values. And if you go back to the question, these are the options that were giving me. So at -5, do they both have 2? No. I can cross that off. Actually going to drag this into my notebook. So at -5, they both don't have 2. At -1, do they both have -4? And the answer is yes. You can see that right there. At 1, they both don't have 4. And at -2, they both don't have -1. So our answer should be choice 2. So we're going to take a look at another question and we're going to do option 2 and I'm going to explain why here. So it says which ordered pair is in the solution set of the system of equations shown below? Y squared minus x squared plus 32 equals 0 and 3y minus x equals 0. So if I wanted to use option 1, I would have to put them both into y equals. That's not an option here because I have a y squared. So I can't use y equals. So I have to go to option 2, which is to substitute for x and y into the first equation. If it works, I'm going to go to the second equation and try it. If not, I'm going to cross it out and move on. So my first point is 2, 6. Remember, this is my x and this is my y. So I'm plugging it in, y squared minus x squared plus 32 equals 0. So that means I should have 6 squared minus 2 squared plus 32, and it should equal 0. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I am going to go to the home screen and I'm going to type that in. Parentheses 6 parentheses squared minus parentheses 2 parentheses squared plus 32. We get 64. So 64 equals 0, not true. Choice 1 doesn't work. I'm going to move on to choice 2. 3, 1. So I have y squared minus x squared plus 32. It should equal 0. So 1 squared minus 3 squared plus 32 should give me 0. Going back to my calculator, if you want, you can scroll up and hit enter and it will copy and paste for you, so you can maybe save some time in substituting, changing my x to be a 3 and changing my y to be a 1. I get 24. 24 does not equal 0. I'm going to cross it off and I'm going to move on to choice 3, which is -6, -2. It's very important with the negatives that you use parentheses when you substitute. Still using my first equation, y squared minus x squared plus 32 is supposed to give me 0. -2 squared minus -6 squared plus 32 should give me 0. Going back to my calculator. -2 squared. Notice how my parentheses come first. The negative is on the inside of the parentheses, and then the squared is on the outside. Minus -6, which is inside the parentheses, squared, plus 32, and I get 0. So that means that it works for the first equation, but a solution to a system must work in both or all of the equations, which means I now have to test it out in my second equation, which is 3y minus x equals 0. So substituting in carefully, I have 3 times -2 minus -6. That's supposed to give me 0. 3 times -2 minus -6 gives me 0. So it works with both equations, so my answer is choice 3. If it didn't work with the second equation, I would cross it off and then I would go to my next answer choice. It must work with both equations for it to be your final answer. So those are your 2 multiple choice strategies. If you can put both equations in y equals, you're going to use the y equals button and the table or the point of intersection. If you have a y squared, like we did in example 2, you can't use that method. So you're going to just substitute in since it's multiple choice.